Kyle, how's it going?
Great, Stephen. How are you? Thanks for having me.
It's pretty good so far. I think it's a good morning. We got to talk a little bit beforehand, so my energy's up and I'm ready for art conversation. Hopefully.
Oh, so I thought this was just going to be dad jokes. I was just going to do jokes for the next hour. Is that fine?
I think it's okay. Yeah. Do you mix in some card magic, like some jokes?
We could do a little bit of that, a little bit of that, whatever you want.
We specifically had a request from a Proko team member, Patrick, asking for some magic, so I think we'll count this one.
Ooh, okay. There, we've got that out of the way.
Yeah, nailed it. So for those of you who don't know, Kyle is the person who made all of the Photoshop brushes that you use all the time forever. The best one that you tell all your friends they should use when they ask what brush you're using. Kyle is a fantastic toolmaker, an incredibly skilled artist, a writer, podcaster. What else am I missing here, Kyle?
Gosh, well, I do consider myself a pretty C+ tennis player.
Okay. This one I didn't know. All right.
C+. So, whatever.
Is it a specifically a tennis grade, or are we going just with the normal?
I mean, that's just me saying C+, but if you wanted to actually rank me, I'm a 4.0, which is kind of a catch-all ranking. If anybody knows what that is in tennis, it's like most people are 3.5, 4.0. So
okay. Is it the white belt of tennis?
It's a little more than the white belt. It's like I've been playing since I was 14, so a long time. And I did play varsity in high school. Ooh.
All right.
But then I got to college and said, whoops, now I see how people really play. So then I just kind of down to intramurals, and then that's the end of that story.
Okay. All right, that's fair. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about a tool that you made that was missing from Photoshop in the past, but you felt needed to exist, that we now have on Proko. And so we're going to go through that. You're going to show a little bit of the use of it, a little bit of drawing, take some questions here in the chat. If anyone in the chat has questions, please drop them in there. Start with a nice cue in the beginning, so it'll make it a little bit easier for me to see. And just repeating it in the chat won't make me get to it sooner. If anything, it'll make me get to it later. So, Kyle, do you want to jump into it?
Yeah, let's go. Here we go. We're going to do it. I am just, while we were talking, I was sketching because I said I wanted to have something to draw with this Lasso tool that I made. And so let's just talk about why this thing even exists and why I made it. For the longest time, I would say 2 decades, I've been using this method of drawing where I just make selections and then fill them. And you guys have an amazing guest and instructor who has talked about this way of drawing for a long time. He calls it shape carving. And I'm blanking on his name right now for some reason.
This is Scott Flanders, shape carver.
Yes, absolutely. Phenomenal stuff. Great illustrator. And but yeah, a lot of his process, at least what he's demonstrated with you all, is using the Lasso tool and filling a shape. So normally, here, I'll go ahead and I'll disable my beautiful super lasso here for a moment. What that would entail would be, of course, you make a selection, whatever it is, okay, and then you will use your keyboard, either Option Delete or Command Delete, Option Delete. I'm talking, by the way, Mac language over here. If you're on a PC, Option means Alt key, right? So if I say Option, you think Alt. If I say Command, I think you're going to think Control if you're on a PC. So I'm over here in Mac land. But yeah, Option Delete means I'm going to be filling with the foreground color, like so, okay? And then I deselect and move on or whatever. Now, it's not like that's an extremely laborious process. It's not the worst thing in the world. But I thought, wouldn't it be nice if you could just draw with the Lasso? It automatically fills with color, and then you keep going. And there are other apps that have this feature. And I don't know exactly what this tool is called, but I've seen it in other apps, and it works really nice. So I got together with this guy, David Barranca, who is a fantastic developer. And I said, hey, I've been begging and pleading for this to exist in Photoshop. I work at Adobe. I said, come on, guys, come on, let's do it. And as you can imagine, people at Adobe are very busy, and there's like a zillion maybe requests for different tools for Photoshop every year. So eventually I decided, you know what, probably easier. I'll just build the plugin. We'll get it out there to the world. So that's what we have. So if I just open that up for you here, this is a plugin that has its own panel. and you can dock it if you want anywhere. And I just open it up and keep it right here in this bottom portion of my, I'm not sure what this little sidebar is called, but I love this little thing. And if you turn it on, and now it's enabled, I'll just do the same thing I did a moment ago, just make a shape, and then boom, it just fills it with color, okay? Now you'll notice the opacity is actually down on that. So if I draw another shape here, whoa, look at that, okay. So you do have some pretty cool things you can do with the Super Lasso that you can't do with just the regular lasso tool, at least not with a few steps, and that gets kind of frustrating. So I'll crank that back up to 100, and let's just go ahead and delete what we got there. And let's just walk through what's capable, what it's capable of, pardon me. So obviously select your foreground color. And if you're using a lasso tool, just start drawing and you make a shape. Change the color and you make another shape, change the color, and et cetera, et cetera. One of the other things people like to do when they're drawing with this method is they like to be able to have shapes on individual layers. And that's another thing I thought, well, why don't we just automate that for you? So I'll hide my sketch for a moment here. Make a new layer. And then if you look down here in the Super Lasso, there is a create new layers option. You toggle that on. Now, let's say I make a shape here. We'll just do this. All right, there's one shape. I'll use a darker color. And I'll make another shape like so. Now, the moment I make that shape, you'll notice that over here in my layer stack, I automatically have a separate layer. So this means the hair that I've just drawn on this character is now separate. And if I were to then draw yet another shape, okay, just change the color here and do that, that is now on its own layer as well. So all of these are now going to be independent. And this is a really great way to work also for people who have to do a lot of coloring and use the lasso tool for color. If you're making comics or if you're doing line art with flat color, a lot of times you want to have your color sometimes in different sections on separate layers. It's obviously easy enough to just grab the layers you want using the Shift key and then Command E or Control E, and that's going to merge those layers together in your layer stack. So if you want to periodically, as you're using the tool, do that, you can. But it's also really easy if you decide that you have one area that you want to have several colors on, simply disable the create new layers toggle and toggle that off, move through a few layers, move through a few colors, whatever, toggle it back on when you need it. So the purpose of all of this is efficiency. We're trying to make it so that if you're going to work with color or if you're going to work with this kind of shape carving method, that you can do it more quickly. Now, you're also going to want to be able to sometimes delete with the lasso tool or any selection tool for that matter, and do it rapidly in succession. This will happen if you're doing this kind of additive subtractive drawing, which a lot of us do, especially if we're doing some kind of creature design, trying to work out a good silhouette for something. So just to demonstrate that, let's go over here. We'll turn the lasso on. Now, let's say that, you know, I get some kind of a shape down for a character or whatever. All right, so we'll do this. Just kind of sketching with it like that. Obviously, that's not what I want. No problem. Just go over it like so. All right, so
I like the belly button.
do additive stuff right now. This is all like just additive, right? I'm just going to draw until I feel like I've got something here that's kind of a good starting point, right? Get some kind of a big boot there, whatever. All right, maybe give him some kind of hair. All right, we're getting somewhere here. Maybe he's got some like shoulder pad things or something like that. All right, so I'm making my little character. And now I'm like, you know what? Okay, I've got some areas here that I feel pretty good about, positively speaking. But now I sort of want to go in there and maybe do some carving away. So how do I do that? Well, if you go over here, you can delete. So Super Lasso has a delete mode. So now every successive shape that I draw with the lasso tool is going to automatically delete. So if I come in here and say, let's get rid of that, let's trim that out. Now I'm just in this mode where I'm quickly deleting. So
And so
this really is
the opacity works in here as well?
Oh, of course.
Fantastic.
Check it out.
Nice.
Oh, it doesn't. I lied. I thought it did. I lied. I don't even know my own tool.
Nobody updated.
It should. You know, Steven, you just gave me an idea. Look for an update soon, everybody. And Steven, I think we'll give you, how's what, 65, 70% of the sale from that if the
I
upgrade
think
comes
that
in?
seems fair. That only seems fair, I think, at this point. We did have
I've
a
heard that's
question.
usually
Say again?
that's usually what you ask for.
Yeah, this is not going great with the ideation. But there was a question here. I think you and I talked about this a little bit before. So Charles Houghton was asking, will the plugin work on iPad as well? And Moe, I think Mo, also added, will it also work on Adobe Fresco on the iPad?
Oh, interesting questions. Well, the answer, I'm sad to say, is no for both of those because plugins are not supported for any
Currently.
iPad apps through Adobe. There's no way to make a plugin work for iOS. And now I can't tell you all the reasons for that because I am not an engineer. I am not a coder. But I do know that it's just not possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I regret to tell you that that just isn't going to happen.
Now,
But
you were describing here the way this works. I think we've all had that experience of wanting to like lay something in really fast and then
yeah,
having to, like carve a shape out and then go and like fill the thing. You end up reaching for all these crazy different solutions. And I think that this is just one that's much more succinct and user friendly.
yeah. And it's like, it's just one of those things that you're in this stage right now of just trying to build this silhouette. You're trying to figure things out. You're like, what's this shape? What's that shape? And to just take out that whole step of using a key command to fill the color and then deselecting, etc. Or if you want to be like deleting with the same tool, right? The whole additive subtractive thing. It's so fast to be able to work this way. And it's a lot more for me, allowing me to work at the speed of my brain. And I'm not interrupting the process. I'm not interrupting the flow. As I look, I respond to what's there on the canvas like we all do. I need a little bit of this, I need a little less of that, whatever it happens to be. I look now and I'm gonna just go back to deleting right now because I really want to sort of refine this whole thing and just do that. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think for those of us who are used to thinking in shapes, this is a really, really handy thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think
There you
a
go.
lot of people in the beginning of a person learning art, I think we naturally gravitate towards lines as a laying
Mhm.
tool. But over time, I think that we end up realizing that shape and solid masses really, really, really are the way to go sometimes, depending on the way that you're
Yeah.
going to render at the end.
Yeah, and like I think it's one of those things where you get when you do get comfortable with it, it's really nice to be able to bounce back and forth between thinking with line, thinking with shape. It's just another language basically that you're learning, and yeah. So let me just do this here. I'm gonna add a little bit more here, and then I'll show you. This is the other thing I like about it is that if you were to decide that you want to add a bit of tone or whatever, take this beyond simply like a pure silhouette, then what you would do, of course, is lock the layer transparency. And you could also use a clipping mask. Either way, it doesn't matter. So if you want to lock the layer transparency, the key command for that is the / under the question mark on your keyboard. I think that's called / right? Not backslash. I always get them confused.
Under which key?
Under the question mark on the keyboard. It's a / right?
Yeah, it's / yeah.
Right. So that's this is also, I love throwing out key commands. A lot of people don't know that that is a key command for locking layer transparency. You just toggle it on and off with that key. It's really fast. So if I hit that, now I've got the little lock showing me that I've locked my layer transparency. This is a destructive way to work. So if you're a big fan of working non-destructively, then I would recommend using clipping masks. But I'm still here using the same tool, using the lasso tool. And I can now use this eyedropper and select slightly lighter color maybe. And then I would say, okay, now I'm going to start to do some things like, maybe I call out the bridge of the nose, right? And I start to just, figure out maybe some of that. Okay.
Nice.
And all of a sudden, like we're off to the races. We're starting to do something a little different here where we're building in a bit of juice, as they say, right?
The juice is flowing.
A bit of juice. Okay, so now things start to get a bit more interesting.
There would be multiple
Is
ways for you to approach this one too, because of the nature of this tool. I feel like I'm really sounding like I'm shilling the tool because it's a genuinely good tool, and I'm discovering this along with you guys. But you could technically use this with like a different a different darkness of black in a mask to also do some of this non-destructively.
Oh, for sure. Exactly. And I love working with masks, any kind of flipping masks, but also just regular masks, like you're saying. Uh, Masks are non-destructive, and any kind of non-destructive workflow is one of the things about digital art that makes it such a incredible way to work. And I don't know if you all know Christoph Niemann, incredible artist, New Yorker cover artist, fine artist, illustrator for 25 odd years. One time I had the chance to hang out with him in his studio, and I was talking about working digitally versus working traditionally. He does both, as do I, and as do many of us. But he said, what I love about working digitally is it is endlessly reversible and infinitely flexible. And I think that's it. You've just summed up pretty much the beauty of working in this environment. You can time travel when you work digitally. You can work backwards, Command Z. You have all this weird flexibility you can build into a non-destructive workflow. Yeah, it's pretty fantastic. But anyway, you can see what I'm doing here, and you get the idea. And again, that's just kind of happening at the speed of thought because of using the tool this way. All right, so we get the idea there. Now, of course, you could do the same thing with the clipping mask, and that would work as well. So let's move beyond this, and let's see what else we could do with it. I'll just add another layer here. We've looked at fill, we looked at delete, and we've looked at the opacity settings and the creating of the new layers. Obviously, we thought it'd be nice to be able to work with adding a stroke to a path as well. So you just tap on stroke and set your pixel value right there. So maybe I'll do 4 pixels, and we'll just go ahead and make a shape, and there you go. Now I've got lines. So if you do want to work in this way, you can just draw lines really, really quickly. And this is way faster than it would be if you didn't have this. So for those of you who want to try this, it's great. It's also good for adding decorative elements to something. And I think in the video that I created for Proko with this, I did that on this collar that this creature is wearing. But yeah, there are also some interesting things you can do that you probably wouldn't try normally. And things like this, like if I try a writing exercise, so we'll do like.
No.
And then you can like go back over it and do weird stuff like this. It's just fun to try this kind of stuff. Like I would never even do this if I wasn't thinking about using this tool, right? Proko, stuff like that.
Yeah, this is like a nice like pop feel. Like there's this it opens up like a bunch of possibilities that normally would take you a much longer time.
Yeah, and it's just this is the thing about working with different media as well. If you're trying different mediums and you're comfortable enough with drawing and with making images, and somebody hands you something different. If you're going from maybe you're working with watercolor, but then somebody just hands you a micron pen, you're not going to approach making an image the same way. And so with something like this kind of a tool as well, you just start thinking in a slightly different way, and maybe some new ideas emerge, maybe even a whole new style comes out of the way you're working. So that's how that works. That's stroke. But then, of course, you could also combine fill and stroke. And the way this works is the fill will be the foreground color, and the stroke will be the background color. So if I use my color picker up here, and we'll just select a yellow like that. Then now that I've got the fill and the stroke, make a shape, and you'll notice that the stroke is yellow. I got that reversed. I'm sorry. It's the stroke is the background color. There we go. Because we want to make sure you don't get confused. You're already using the foreground color for the fill. So there you go. Now we can just use the X key on your keyboard. That will swap your foreground and background color. And if I could do this, there you go.
This is the classic.
And
I can't count the amount of times that I accidentally hit X.
Oh, well, there you go. That's what
I
it
first
does.
started using Photoshop is the worst. Now.
Yeah, I know. I know. Different color there. We can go here, use our background color. Anyway, now this is, of course, a good time probably to be using the create new layers as well. So if you do have things that have a stroke and a fill, right? Nice to be able to have those separate and be able to move them around automatically.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the next one I'll show you is a little weird.
Are we going to go into average?
Yeah, average. So once you understand how it works, though, it's pretty fun. We'll just go back to fill here, and I'll just make a shape, grab another color, and let's just make a shape right here, like that. Whoops, I forgot to change my color. There we go. Voila. All right, 2 colors. Actually, we need a bit more contrast than that, don't we?
Probably. Because we're going for the layer style of average.
There we go. All right. For average, let's just make a average selection. So we tap on average. Now what's going to happen is if I draw over here, nothing happens. It just makes a selection. You go, well, that's not very interesting. But if I go over here, see what it does?
It's blending.
Exactly. It averages out the color. So, you could do this, and it's going to average that out. And then if I do it over here, it's going to average those out. And there's a really subtle change there.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is a sort of blending / averaging tool. And it's really interesting because then you can get a solid, crisp edge to whatever shape you're making, but still color-wise, you're moving from one hue to another, from one value to another, whatever it happens to be. Yeah, there are some pretty interesting and weird ways you could think of to use that tool. So that is what average does.
I like this because there's like a person who's coming in from just doing like flat colors, like they want an absolute color. So often when they go to try to start rendering a little bit more and they'll try to use like a smudge tool or something like that, they still want a hard edge because they're used to an absolute like that. So it's a good middle ground. I like that. It's cool.
Right. So you can imagine maybe something like this. I'll show you here. We're going to do a sort of a fire sort of situation here. Okay, so I'll do this. That's so ugly.
I wasn't going to say it.
There, that's a little better. But let's do this. And now if I turn on average, you know what's going to happen. I go like this. Okay, now I can change it. But how about this? Ready? Inside we go. And then, of course, you're going to get that in between. Okay, so you can start imagining how you could really quickly do these kinds of like very solid color breaks. Maybe you want to do something like cell shading kind of style, manga inspired, or rather anime inspired, whatever. This would be an easy way to do that. You want to have something break from one value to another. You just have a solid, clear break that's a nice shape. Then you're in good shape. All right, so there we go. I'll pause for a moment. I want to check and see if there are any questions from the chat or about anything right now.
So right now they were just kind of like losing their minds at the average function, just in general. Samantha, let's see who else. Jeremiah called it sorcery, and then another person was just excited to see you being a lefty.
Yes, lefties. That's right. Stephen, the hardest thing for me is going to a hardware store and finding a left-handed hammer.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Scissors seem just like a whole crapshoot. It seems terrible.
Well, I'll tell you something weird. Because of the scissors situation, actually, I cut with my right hand.
Huh.
Because in preschool and in kindergarten, they did not have left-handed scissors in the classroom. And so I started using them with my right hand and never stopped.
I think this is a good way to do this. I do like there's like those ideas of like handedness in general, but then people end up either by like nature or nurture kind of situations, like it's environmental or within them, switching to different things. I shoot a basketball like trash. I switch to guiding with the wrong hand every time, and my basketball coach was so mad at me all throughout high school. But no,
You're
I think
guiding with the
that
wrong hand. I'm imagining you're like putting a lot of side spin on it or something every time you throw it up.
you're supposed to like basically like pilot it with your non-dominant hand
Right.
and push with this, but I end up doing the reverse every time. It's bad. It's bad. We did have just a comment here from Jeremiah saying, "Hi Kyle, your blogs are such an inspiration."
Oh, I really appreciate that. Thank you. Writing is hard, so thanks for reading.
Yes, if anyone is curious about your blogs or any of your articles or anything like that, they can sign up for your newsletter over at accidental-expert.com. You just posted a new article over there, correct?
I did. I shared some thoughts about how I feel with this whole AI situation. I'm very nervous about it. I posted some interesting thoughts about that there, and I tried to hook you in with a bit of snark and sarcasm to kick it off. But I hope people read it, and please do read and comment, and keep the conversation going. Yes, thank you for that. And yeah, it's free. It's free to subscribe. So hey, people like free stuff.
Absolutely. Speaking
All
of
right.
free stuff,
Yes.
I will say that people did mention earlier that they had switched over to Fresco because of your proselytizing about it.
Oh, that's
So
nice. Yes,
just
it
want to
is a
put that
free
out there.
app. I think most people don't realize it's free.
Mhm.
Even after all these years. It's yeah, I think that the marketing around the pricing is very confusing. So a lot of people just assume you need a Creative Cloud subscription, but you don't.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So, and if you like brushes, I made those brushes too.
It's a good one. I've said consistently, I think I told you about this. It's my favorite stock pencil brush of absolutely any single app. And I was mad because I wanted to use it in other programs, but I cannot find a way to pull it out of there to try to use it
You
in
know,
anything else.
I want to use this opportunity to do two things. One, I want to say that every brush in Fresco is mine except for that brush. And I'll tell you that we have to give credit where it's due. That is Paul George, a brilliant engineer who has since retired from Adobe. But it was his design, and the only thing I did was help him with the shape of the pencil. But the actual functionality is all Paul. So
Okay.
hats off to Paul. And then the second thing I'll tell you is a lot of people don't know you can draw with brushes like that in Photoshop. It's just that people don't know where they are. So if I
Yeah.
could take 2 seconds to show you where to do where the brush is, I think
Yeah.
people should know this.
Yeah, no,
If
absolutely. Yeah, I tried to look up how to take a brush out of there, and I couldn't find this.
Yeah, so it's a totally different brush engine for that specific brush because it actually has a dynamic texture, which is a first.
Hmm.
The texture will change every time when you're drawing with it, and it builds. It's very interesting. That's why people love it. But if you're looking for that kind of brush behavior in Photoshop, it does exist.
Mhm.
And you'll find it, I know this is weird, but in the winter 2022 brush update, which
Okay.
is very confusing. So for those of you who have Photoshop, you get more brushes from the brushes panel here. That little tiny drop-down menu, get more brushes. That's where you go. And that'll pop open a browser window where you'll sign in and just download the winter 2022 brush set.
Okay. Okay. You
It'll
heard
look
it
like
here.
there's a page. You'll see there, you sign in there, and then there's like 2,000 and some change brushes there. Anyway, the reason I tell you to download that is because down here you'll find in that group Tilty Pencil. That's the one you want.
Is that
There
okay?
are 3 of them, and
Okay.
you'll see how this looks. You can do all the stuff you do with the regular pencil in
It was
Fresco.
so
Where
good.
you can shade with the side. You can use it for just fine line work. I'm not having to change the brush size. I'm just tilting it like I would my Apple Pencil on the iPad.
Mhm.
Same kind of functionality. So you can go thick to thin, and all that beautiful stuff.
It's so good. Man. Yeah,
So
no,
there
honestly,
you go.
that's the clip. Everybody, that's the one that'll go viral. Everyone will talk about this one moment of using this magnificent pencil.
That
I think
pencil came out of yeah, I don't know if anybody saw Merry Little Batman, the Warner Brothers produced
Mhm.
animation that was on, I think, Prime this past Christmas.
I just ended up watching it
Um,
through like all just being shared online in some different
well,
ways.
anyway, yeah, that I had to make those tilty pencils for Warner Brothers for some of the animators there when they were doing some of the line work and some of the backgrounds for that cartoon. So that's where that came from.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm very proud of that. All right. So look, quickly, I want to show you the feathering, because we didn't talk about that, but you can actually use it for feathering too. So let's just crank up and then make a shape, and look at that. So you can bounce back and forth very quickly, between feathering selections as well.
I'm trying to see. I can't see so well through the smaller preview I have here. What is it that's below the feather? They're like 3 options, some little toggles.
Oh, right. So when you do add a stroke, you not only will be setting the width, but you can actually have, just like normally with when you add a stroke to a path, you select inside, center, or outside for where along the path or along the selection that will be added. So for example, if I go to outside and I select like 8 pixels, okay, and then make my shape, okay, it's going to go outside of the shape I make, right? But if I go inside, do the same thing, it's going to go inside. So if you're looking for sharper edges, you want to go inside, okay? Like that.
Very nice.
Center is going to be kind of in the middle. There you go.
Okay. That's good.
So I think that's it. So we've covered feathering, the opacity at the very beginning. You remember I was playing around with that. Whoops. Go here. Opacity means opacity. So you'll see as I overlap these, they are not fully opaque. And we've covered the fill and the stroke and the delete and the average and pretty much everything else. So there you go. Easy to toggle it on and off. The other thing that's cool about Super Lasso is if you decide to undo, you'll notice that it retains your active selection. So you don't lose the selection you made. This is very important. A lot of times somebody, you'll make something and you'll be like, it's a really specific shape you've made, but then you'll be like, oh, darn it, I didn't mean to fill with that color. I didn't mean to do whatever it is. Just go ahead and deselect and Command Z one time, and you'll still have your active selection.
This is very good. Absolutely. Because I think
it's kind of like a safeguard.
There are a lot of like Procreate users out there who end up making a selection, tapping back one time too many, and then end up just losing a selection. It's the worst.
Not good.
We do have some other wider questions. If you want to just start working away on this piece, or did you want to talk about what you're going to do here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, just no. I'll answer the questions. I'm sketching while I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So sure. What are the questions?
Tomodachi Disco was asking, can I turn off the pop-up notification when I create very tiny with Lasso? It says no pixels are more than 50% selected. I think this is a wider Photoshop question.
That's a wider Photoshop thing, and that is happening because you have normally is happening because you have a feathering value for your selection. If you have no feathering, if your feathering is set to 0, then you should not see that warning.
Okay.
So for example, here, if I were to, I'm using my lasso tool now, I'll enable it. There we go. I have no feathering, okay? And I can make a tiny little shape like that. See that? I mean, that's about as small as you can go. We're talking like just a few tiny pixels, right? And the tool works fine with that. No errors, no problems, no issues. Now that happens here because, do you see the size of a pixel? And then this is my selection. My selection is literally
it means nothing.
A pixel.
Yeah, it becomes nothing in the actual, like creating a raster graphic.
Now, if you put a feathering in, let me do this. I'll put feathering of maybe a value of say 10, and then I'll try and do a small selection. Automatically, I'm going to get that because I'm building in the selection in addition to 5 pixels inside, 5 pixels outside of that selection. So it's adding another 5 pixels on the outside. And once that happens, it doesn't have enough room to expand on the interior to create that feather. So put your feathering, make sure your feathering is set to 0, okay? And you should be fine unless you're making something so infinitesimally, is that the word? Tiny that, yeah. I mean, if you look at the grand scheme of things, look how tiny those are. I'm not sure why you would ever be making selections that small, to be honest.
I don't think
a lot of times the issue is, a lot of times the issue is feathering.
Yeah, honestly, I think it might be a moment to say something to people working digitally out there. If you have to zoom in that far, it's not worth your time. The viewer will not see it.
Yeah, this is a common mistake people make when they do switch over to digital is the super zoom, and they add a whole bunch of detail nobody will ever see, and it also adds a problem with cohesion to your
Mhm.
illustration. So um, you need to be careful with that. How much detail do you want to show? Well, it shouldn't be so much detail that it gets lost and just turns into some kind of annoying texture or distraction in an otherwise more open um, illustration that doesn't have all that detail. So yeah, that's a
Mhm.
common problem. I think the key is to, as you would when you're drawing with traditional media, to step back from your art, do this, like zoom out occasionally and just look at the whole thing and say, okay, is everything feeling about the same kind of level of balance with regards to detail and value and everything else? You step back from your painting, you do this all the time. So do the
Mhm.
same thing digitally and you'll be in good shape.
Absolutely. And then Reza was asking if you can give some tips on making abstract shapes. They said they know about straights versus curves and flow, but what are some other things to be conscious of?
Abstract shapes. Okay. Well, let's think about a couple things here. One, remember, variety is a spice of life. Variety is a spice of drawing. If you don't have a good balance of big, medium, small, then you're going to get same, same, same.
Mhm.
And you also have to be careful about not connecting shapes. If you want to connect, for example, shadow shapes, if you have an opportunity sometimes to connect some shadow shapes, this is going to add more structure. It's going to add better legibility to what you're drawing, and better flow. So think about connecting shapes. Think about, I think you said the person just mentioned curves and straights. Think about a balance of the two and think about which one might be more dominant.
Mhm.
I think if everything is split down the middle too, this is too symmetrical and there's too much even Steven, not saying anything
Yeah.
about your name, but that's
No, no,
a fun
that's
expression.
those are the V people. It's fine. Drag them.
Correct. Not the PHs.
They're good.
Yeah, so I think these are some things to think about with shape. Um, you notice, like for example, this character I'm drawing. I'm certainly no expert at any of this, but like automatically, I just want to have him see. Like I want to have this offset here. I want to have a nice, you know, I want these strong lines to be, you know, I've got some imbalance here. This is coming straight down here. This is going down there. This is down here. This is over here, right? We're having him not contrapposto, but one shoulder lower than the other, probably to make things even better. I would eventually take this, tilt it back that way a little bit,
Mhm.
just to give me that boom, boom, boom kind of deal. These kinds of things you want to think about to add a bit of dynamism and a bit of interest to whatever you're drawing, so it's not so static and just kind of rigid and like a mannequin, just bloop.
Mhm.
That makes sense. I hope I'm
Yeah.
helping out there with some
No,
of these ideas.
very much so. I think, like, we actually had a recent video that we posted, about just adding more life to your shapes. It just
Nice.
even if you have something that's supposed to be like pretty steady, like it's just like this like stone rectangle. If you just give it a
Uh-huh.
little bit of squish that leans in one direction towards the bottom, you feel like it's like rooted in place and it has a little more life to it. Just look around at the things around you. Just in general,
Yep. I
everything will
mean,
have a little bit of lean to it.
that is just all you need right there.
Mhm.
That's that will do the trick.
Mhm. Yeah, just a slight push.
Anything you can do, yeah, now you've got me wanting to draw rocks, uh, which, I'd be happy to. But sure, these kinds of things, that's all gold. These are these little kinds of things. Once you think about them once, you can't stop thinking about them. And then from that point forward, every time you're drawing, you're just going to be thinking about these things.
Mhm.
It's so great to have somebody point something out to you that you maybe have never thought about before, and to them it's sort of like, oh gosh, I thought everybody knew that. But that's what I love about the art community, is people are just constantly helping each other out. And one person's sort of, I take this for granted, little piece of wisdom or whatever, is another person's just, diamond treasure of the day, where they're like, oh wow, you've
Mhm.
just enlightened me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just that magic bullet that you just didn't know existed before.
I know, it's just so great. All right, so I'm just sketching around here. I thought it'd be funny, if he's got his foot here on this this ogre he's vanquished or something. I don't know. Something like that. You were just talking about shape. I see what I just did there. I wasn't thinking about it, but okay, let me do that again. So I'm
You
like, I'm
broke up
coming here and I'm like, kadunk, kadunk. And then here I'm like, oh, let's just bum, 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 just to add a little bit of a nice sort of this is happening. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It makes it so that this is not the same as that.
Yeah, and it in there for the person who was asking about the dynamic shape design, the you can see with the way that the cloth is moving in here, it's I forget what these actual, the different types of folds and bends in fabric are called all the time,
Oh,
but
accordion. One of them's an accordion fold. One of them's
yeah.
all that stuff. Yeah, I don't
Which
know.
I believe that'd be what we have here on this side. There's a sympathetic movement on the left side of that, the camera left. You have a
Mhm.
bigger mass on the other side because of that curve that's happening on the wider area over here, I guess. Then it pinches in, and so looking for where you can
Yeah.
have sympathetic movements, I think, is important, and that even goes into what you were talking about the pose with the
Yeah, and
offset
this is
shoulder.
probably stronger if I just leave it like boom, boom. Like that's probably stronger. Um, and again, it's digital art, so you can always change your mind.
Mhm, mhm.
All right. So anyway, I could do this. I could just keep playing with this for a long, long time, but I'll get this character here. Hold down the R key if you want to rotate your canvas.
That
That's a
just
good
all the
one.
hotkeys today.
Yeah. R for rotate.
And if you guys have any other questions, please don't think that they have to be limited to what you see here right now, as
No,
we're
no,
coming
no.
across
Yeah.
broader
Questions
concepts.
about anything at all. Photoshop stuff,
Mhm.
drawing stuff, lasso tool stuff. Doesn't matter. Whatever.
Yeah. I do there was a thing that we had been talking about having you on at some point to talk about some other types of illustrations that you do, because you do
Mm,
such a broad amount of styles, like a broad range of styles. So there are
mm.
these single line illustrations that you do that I would just
Yes.
love to see in practice personally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those I do. I do those all the time. As just, I don't even know why I do them. They're really fun. They make you think differently, and that's really important. I think to just if you have ways of working where you switch one part of your brain off and another part gets turned on, and it makes things also less boring. But this is the kind of thing. This is the kind of thing you're talking about, where I'll just.
I love you so much, guys. I didn't even think about the part watching it where you wouldn't necessarily know what it was going to be as a final image.
I really don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of feeling it out as I go. And right now I'm just kind of zipping through, and I haven't done one in a while. So who knows? Is it going to be good? I don't know. Maybe.
It just look like I know that the part of my brain that's tickling and getting this nice response from is this side of me that was looking at like 70s jazz album covers and everything.
Oh yeah. Oh my
It's
gosh.
just
I know exactly what you're talking about.
they're so good.
Yeah. There's a guy, Paul Rogers. Look him up.
Paul
Phenomenal
Rogers.
illustrator. He does a bit of this sometimes, or maybe something kind of similar. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same, but it's definitely in that vein. He also has kind of so like that kind of thing. Obviously that should have been like that, but whatever.
Look at that.
That's a warm up.
Just
Yeah.
incredible. We do have there's a comment here from the chat here. This is Zach Norris saying, not a question, but thanks for the killer work you do with brushes. Greg Smallwood is always recommending your digital brushes, and his comic work is some of the
Oh,
best in the biz.
Greg Smallwood. Wow, there's somebody who can draw. Yeah, I'll take that. My goodness. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for the comment, and also very excited to see what Greg does. He's always like taking a brush I make and he's using it in a way that I never would have anticipated, like in terms of just maybe the texture that he employs with it, or whatever it is he does. I'm always just like, oh yeah, nice, that really works. So yeah, he's incredible. The dude's awesome.
Moe, I think, correct me if I'm pronouncing that one wrong. If it's just Mo, let me know. But they said that I love Kyle's course illustrating on Fresco. Wondering if there are plans for similar courses in the future.
Not in the near future. I will tell everybody that course took me about 8 months to make, so that was quite a chunk of work. So probably not too soon. Just because, oh my gosh, that was just so much work. But I also think because that's a pretty comprehensive. I mean, there's really nothing I left out in that. So it's not like I need really to revisit it anytime soon. It's drawing, it's animation, it's like pretty much everything you need, I think.
This was one of the ones where you had the like animating the position of something like a falling leaf or a bird.
Yeah, it covers basically subtle animation for you. Like if you make an illustration that you want to have some subtle movement in it, it just shows you how to do that. You know, you could go crazy and do a bunch of stuff if you wanted to. You know, and do like a full blown, whatever, 20-second, 30-second, 40-second, minute long animation, whatever.
Yeah, and like I can imagine someone just taking the time. Like you've seen incredible animations come out of that one, like Nintendo DS art program. So where there's a will, there's a way.
I know. Well, just a quick story about that. When I was 13 years old, in the high school, there was. So I was going into.
You'd been playing tennis.
I was 14.
Okay, I was gonna say so you've been playing tennis for 2 years at that point.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I was 14 years old. My dad was the guidance counselor in the school I went to school, and they had a Mac Plus, which was like one of the first all-in-one small box Apple computers that had a tiny screen that was like a square, and it had Mac Draw on it. And I would spend like 4 hours just sitting there, pixel by pixel, making drawings, literally clicking with the mouse for one pixel, moving over, doing another pixel. So where there's a will, there's a way. And I would draw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Wolverine. I would draw all the stuff I like to draw using that method just because it was different. You know?
Honestly, I kind of miss the times when there were less things, because you know, like the idea of necessity of invention and exploration. You don't have this like set goal that you go into. I made things that were just truly self-expressive in just the worst programs.
Yeah, that's also we had more patience, I think.
It's true, and time, just in general. I think patience is definitely a function of having time.
That's true. The older you get, the more responsibility you have, the less time you have, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah,
that's just a factor
that
you have to work in.
There was a comment here from Not This Brain that said, "I'll bet you're scary with an Etch-a-Sketch." I agree.
Maybe.
I would go to that art show, just Kyle T. Webster's Etch-a-Sketch show, and it's just a bunch of Etch-a-Sketches just on the wall that you've made pieces on. I'd go.
Well, that exercise you just had me demonstrate is definitely Etch-a-Sketch kind of made for that, isn't it?
Yeah. Bruce Green here was asking, where does the tool download land on Mac?
Right. So it'll download to wherever you decide to download it. But then the way you actually load the plugins is you use the Creative Cloud desktop app. So if you're not familiar with that, it's the Creative Cloud desktop app is that little Creative Cloud sort of logo that you get when you get any Adobe app. It should automatically install in your machine. You double tap on that to open it. It would look like
it's your hub for all things Adobe.
Yeah, so you'll see all your stuff, and I think it's under where is it? Their instructions are included in the thing. I'm trying to remember how I installed it because it's been so long.
Yeah, I hadn't been in the same spot. No,
I,
if there are instructions for it on the website, I think that they should be much more succinct than us trying to go through and, like, re-remember
yeah,
it.
where is it? Oh, it's in here somewhere. You go to it's in here. Maybe it's under files or something, or I don't remember. Or maybe it's under discover. Oh gosh, I'm doing a terrible job, aren't I?
All that to say, it's not something that you'll load from, like, opening
No,
the
you don't
zip
load it from
folder or anything.
Photoshop.
Yeah.
You close Photoshop, you go to your Creative Cloud desktop app, and it's in here somewhere. I'm sorry, I'm doing. Oh, here it is. There, look, plugins.
Nailed
It's
it.
right there. And you'll find you'll navigate to it through here, and you'll double click on it to open the file, and it'll install it. And the next time you open Photoshop, you just go to your plugins and select it, and it'll show up. And then you can, like I've done, dock it wherever you want. So you see I've got it over here. It looks like two little drops of water with a dotted line around it. You can just put that wherever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's ready to go. And that's how it works. It works for, I think, Photoshop, any Photoshop versions from 2022 onward, maybe 21, but I think 22 is kind of the cutoff. So later versions of Photoshop, I would say from the last 2 years or so.
Oh,
all right, I'll knock this back.
Bruce updated saying they found it.
Sweet.
Perfect. So you knock this back.
Yeah, I'm knocking this back. I'm gonna set it to multiply, make a layer underneath. Probably make it a little darker than that, actually. There we go. And yeah, so, here's what you could do then with your good friend, Super Lasso. Just enable it. And, if I were going to work with maybe just some black and white here, I could just start carving out the areas.
I like this face, by the way. This is like a real, like a cartoon saloon energy in the face here.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I like that. I don't know. Can you guys hear my daughter playing violin, by the way?
No, I would like to, but no, I can't.
Yeah, she's playing downstairs, and I can hear it, but I figured because I'm using a condenser mic, I feel like you're probably not going to hear anything.
No, yeah, it's falling off, I think, before it's getting in there.
Well, she's really good. Both my kids have been playing for 10 years, so they are no joke.
I think this the way you can say that she's really good right now because we can't hear. You asked beforehand if we could hear before saying she was good. I think that's important.
You know what? That's true, isn't it? Whoops.
I'm onto your games, Webster.
He is. You have to believe me.
So as you build up here, I think I'll just give you some general comments and questions. So people had some other questions, like software kind of questions. But I want to do some art questions, I think.
Yeah.
So you are a person of 1 million art skills, 1 million art hobbies, and they're not even just limited to art. I shouldn't say just art. So do you think that there's anything that you gain from being a person of having so many hobbies and different practitioners?
Well, yeah, of course. I think here's the thing about art is you get bored and uninspired all the time. And that's one of the things that just comes with the territory, isn't it? And when that happens, if you have nothing to fall back on, no hobbies, no interests, no activities, whether it could be sports, it could be some kind of a game, it could be things you like to read, it could be music you like to listen to, or an instrument you play, or it could even just be some kind of a social thing you do regularly. If you don't have these other things, then those things can't feed into the art. So when you're feeling a little like you're coming up empty, the vessel is empty of your inspiration, it's like you don't have that, whatever that is, that creative fire, or maybe you just don't have these ideas kind of popping. You need food. And so the food comes in the form of these other things that you do with your time that they're going to stimulate the senses. They're going to give you ideas. And so an example of that is probably the simplest example of all is anybody out there who knows this feeling of going for a walk and about 30, 40 minutes into it, there's a certain level of calm and peace that you achieve that allows you to sort of clear away a lot of clutter. And when that other clutter is cleared away, new, fresh ideas and thoughts start to make their way in.
Mhm.
It doesn't happen quickly. You need time to allow for that state of mind to be accessed. Maybe there are people out there who can do it. Maybe they've trained themselves to like kind of turn on the faucet, but I don't
Mhm.
really think it's that easy. So for me, for example, going for a walk, I'm out of ideas. I'm feeling kind of sluggish. I'm feeling not so great. And 30 minutes into it, I start to notice that I feel lighter. I feel like my brain is feeling a little bit more energized. Like there's room being created for ideas to come in.
Mhm.
And if you sustain that and go for like a full hour, you'll be coming back and you'll be ready to work again. You may even have some new ideas. You may have some new thoughts about solving a problem that you were stuck on. And this might not just apply to art, but I do think with creative thinking, I do think that it is a certain thing that is limited in supply, and to replenish it, you need other things going on. So the walk would be the most basic, but you could really step it up a notch by having other creative activities in your life.
Mhm.
And this would be obviously, yeah, music, theater, movies, um, any of those kinds of things. And for me, it's a whole bunch of them because I just love to. I was talking to Tom Froese, the illustrator, a couple weeks ago on his podcast about this, that I think creativity is more of a way of life than a
Mm.
thing that you decide to sort of block out into, this is when I'm going to be creative and this is when I'm not.
I agree.
The example I gave him was when I was a waiter, for example. Waiting tables is not a lot of fun, probably not the most creative thing, but you can make any activity, no matter how sort of humdrum it is, a bit more interesting, a bit more creative. So I would, draw on the receipts. This is back when, you
Mhm.
got a receipt for your meal. Draw on the receipts. I would fold the napkins. I learned some origami for napkins specifically for that purpose, so that I could fold the napkins on the tables. Um, you know,
Give 'em a
learn more
boost.
dad jokes. Yeah,
Yeah.
the kind of stuff you like, just to infuse whatever it is you're doing with a tiny bit more creativity.
Mhm.
At the top of the conversation of our live stream, I did this, this silly thing where I pull it up. But doing something like that is just an exercise in finding a way to. You've got nothing to do with your hands, so what can you do? Like, for example, I can roll coins on my fingers, and those kids in class when you're in school who are always like spinning the pen and doing things like
Yeah,
that.
that was me.
That kind of thing is, you're learning stuff that it really is not useful, maybe, but it actually is. I think that stuff adds a little something to your life. It's a quality, and I can't really put my finger on it, but all that stuff I think adds up to a lot, and you then have more to pull from when you need
Mm.
ideas. So
Yeah.
that's
I
what I'd say about it.
I think there's this idea. I found myself trying to kind of like fill the background space of my brain while doing other things like menial tasks and like different chores, washing the dishes. And so I'd put on an audiobook all the time. And I was thinking of that as being my strength, where I'm listening to something and getting it like edified. I'm learning something all the time. But it was so much coming in all the time, and there wasn't enough coming out. And so I've tried to more actively approach that idea of letting myself be bored and letting creativity fill that space, because it's like you said,
Yeah.
it's a finite resource, and I think a lot of times people they end up letting themselves kind of cut that off, and then getting to come back is a little bit harder.
Yeah, we live in a world where if you want to be distracted, you can do that 24/7. I mean,
Hmm.
your phone is a source of millions of hours of entertainment and whatever else you want it to be. And so I did a talk about this about, I don't know, 5 years ago at Lincoln Center. You can look it up if you want. I
Was that,
think
is that somewhere on your website maybe?
it's on my website. If you go to on my website, kyletwebster.com, there's a link there to, I think it's called Speaking or something like that. And I think I linked it there. It's also on YouTube. If you just search Kyle Webster boredom,
Mm,
I think you'll find it there. But it's about 20 minutes, so it's not long. But it's all about how you, if you can learn how to be bored again, because none of us really. If the example I gave in the talk is, if you just go stand in line at the bank or something, you will not see a single person who isn't looking at their phone while they're
yeah,
waiting for the teller.
yeah.
Um, if you can allow yourself to space out for a little while, and it's uncomfortable at first, but if you get better at it, you will have ideas start to come in because your brain has to do something. So eventually your brain is going to be like, all right, I got to do something here. And it'll start just inventing stuff. And
Yeah,
that's how I do it.
you make a story, you observe something, something comes out of it invariably.
Always. Yeah. And that's how we all used to operate, before we didn't have any choice.
It's true. Yeah, I do miss that, and I'm glad to be trying to like reclaim that actively. There was a person here in the chat, B plus said cycling works for them. That's a good one.
Oh yeah.
Carl Kopinski is a big cyclist.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And also great draftsman.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it's just ambidextrous. Like what is that?
Oh, that's right. I've seen him do that. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
It's not fair. I mean, it's a skill he honed, so absolutely, you earned it, Carl. Go freaking do your thing. But what a butthole! Too freaking talented.
I know that's not okay. Come on, share a bit of the awesomeness with the rest of us.
There were some questions that we had stack up here.
Yeah.
So this one, I don't know if this is one that you necessarily want to approach. Please feel free to shut any question down if you don't want to.
Sure.
Because not because you don't want to talk about it, but because it deserves like a full hour-long think piece. But yeah, so Charles from earlier was asking, does Kyle see a use case for AI? Just in general. There was another addition here. And I think it's okay. We'll just approach that one for now. Do you see a use case?
I think if it could be used only to make legit, like actual tools in the way that I'm using tools now. I'm using a Lasso. I decided, well, let's improve the Lasso, make it into a drawing tool. So then what else could I do with that? Well, I would like for the Lasso to have smoothing in the same way that my drawing tools have smoothing. I want the Lasso to have a smoothing slider. So that's really just kind of like more feature improvement, improving on features that exist, improving on tools that exist, adding features to tools, etc. But if you think about using AI in that way, then I see no problem with it because actually that's already been happening.
Like in like a not so much in the generative space, but just more like the technical side of AI, the things that we see already, like sharpening for a photo, things of that nature.
Exactly. I would love for Adobe and other companies who are creating these tools to focus far less on Gen AI, if at all, frankly, and work on tooling. Like, I'm an artist who wants to work with brushes. Let's say I'm working with a brush and I decide, you know what? I wish the edges of everything I was painting were just a little softer. I wish that I could just, imagine just narrate, say, to Photoshop, dictate to Photoshop. There's a little audio assistant or whatever. Make this brush have softer edges. And then it's like this. No, a little softer than that. Okay, change the background texture to this. Create a brush based on this brush and this brush. Combine the two. I want these features to, and just be able to create tools on the fly for certain kinds of mark making, Or what if I said, show me how to draw this. And it actually gave me a step-by-step, whatever. But I want to learn and I want to do, and I want to have total creative control, and I want it to be my actions, and I want it to be my creative decisions. And I want all the imperfections that come along with whatever I do to be part of the art, because that's what makes it mine. And I also think that until there are no models trained without the permission of artists, there's no sense at all in doing this. I don't see any sense in doing this technology until everybody wins, everybody's fairly compensated. So that's what I'll say about that. But I'm certainly not ruling out the possibility that there could be a use case for this technology for artists. I just don't see it happening currently.
Yeah, I very much agree. I think that it's really hard to draw a big meaningful distinction for an everyday person who's not necessarily as familiar with the ins and outs between the AI that we already see in place for 1 million things and something like generative AI, where it's outputting something rather than processing an input.
I mean,
And
yeah, something like content-aware fill has been in Photoshop for years,
mhm,
and that's using a similar process, and it's extremely useful, and everybody loves it. Nobody was up in arms saying, "I hate content-aware fill." Everyone said,
yeah,
"I love content-aware fill." Um, but,
yeah,
that's
rotoscoping, ro auto
oh,
rotoscoping, changed my freaking life.
there are a lot of yeah, so if you think about that too, efficiency stuff, like
Mhm,
time-saving stuff that doesn't, quote, unquote, "do it for you" in a way that you lose your voice as an author and the authorship of it, I think is crucial. So anyway, yeah,
I
it's a
think
lot to think about. It's obviously all very new, and it's right now I think it's a big mess, but maybe things will get better. I did see some horrible stuff today, not to bring it all down, but just deep fake stuff involving AI, and I just thought, there's so many horrible directions this can go, where it can be so destructive. I hope there's maybe a path towards regulation quickly and
I
some
get
other
you.
ways to rein it in and focus it on only things that can hopefully benefit us in some way. But I don't see it right now.
Yeah. It's a complicated thing for sure. It's fraught and it's too multifaceted, I think, to even really take it all in currently. So you gotta take it piece by
Oh
piece.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's a little, it makes me nervous.
yeah, I very much understand this one. So then there were some other questions here. Um, oh, that's a lot of name right there. Corvus storage, no inner caps, so that was hard. Is it possible that you make the same tool for Krita or other painting programs? It would be really cool because Photoshop's not free and accessible. Um,
No, I can't do that because I am an Adobe employee. So that would be bad.
yeah, you are prohibited from this. There are other programs that have some tools that are similar. They're not
Yes,
necessarily
absolutely.
working in the same way as this one with the features that are present in this one, but some of these things there might be something that already approaches what you're looking for.
I
Corvus.
think there are multiple apps that have this. I mean, even on the iPad, there's a great app I love called Linnea.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know about that. Um, Linnea, Linea. Um, it may not have been updated anytime recently, but even in the form in which it existed back, when it came out, it does have it has this function where you can draw shapes.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's really slick. It's by these guys called the Icon Factory. They're lovely guys out of North Carolina, in fact. My old stomping
Yeah,
ground.
it's like when you said it, you're like out of North Carolina, and I was like, "Is there a connection to North Carolina?" I had no concept of this one.
Oh, yeah, sorry, because I
Yeah.
forgot that you didn't remember that because Kimberly and I were all like, "Oh my God, North Carolina!" And
Oh, I see.
at Lightbox.
Yeah, that makes sense. Lightbox was a wild show. I try to remember every single person's name who I had a passing conversation with, and I
That's
think
hard.
I I set that as my goal because I'm so bad with names, and I think I filled up my brain's RAM buffer and just dropped everything else off.
That's funny.
Is it when you go to a convention, what do you ever set yourself a certain task like this, where you try to up a certain aspect of yourself for that experience?
My goal at the conventions is just not to get too exhausted because, I am getting older and I notice my body like shut down now. It shuts down like after a certain amount of time where I'm just on, and I'm talking to people and I'm like trying to stay engaged. I eventually just power down. Um, and so I'm a lot more sort of careful now to try and conserve a bit of energy. And if I start noticing myself getting, I can feel it. I can feel it coming on now. I'm like I've programmed myself now to really be aware of what it feels like when that starts.
Mhm.
Uh,
Just
so
headed
I'm,
off
I'm,
the
I'm,
path.
yeah, I just get out. So when I start feeling it happen, I'm like, bye bye. I'll just go leave the convention floor for a while and breathe. And
Mhm.
yeah, because it is. I don't know. I'm sure you have that feeling. You get back to your hotel room and you crash so hard, and you don't realize how exhausted you are from just talking all day and meeting people and like getting inspired and excited. Yeah.
I do it the last day. The all the other like during the main days of an experience, if it's a multi-day kind of show, I'm just propelled through the whole thing by that hyper focus energy of ADHD. And so I'll be up until like 2 a.m. or something, writing down all these like poorly worded notes of ideas that I have during it. So the main thing that I've had to try to do in that time is make more comprehensive notes, because the loose thing of like it'll say something like it's a rake brush but with pressure. That means nothing to future Steven at all. Those are the things I've had to change. But I'll
I can
definitely
understand that. There's a famous Seinfeld about that where he writes something down at night and then the next day when he looks at it, he's like, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah, it's a problem because you think you've given enough context. It's like trying to remember a dream.
Oh, yeah, I've given up on that.
Yeah, I can't. There's no world in which that works.
If you write it down literally the moment you wake up, you're okay. Otherwise, it just vanishes. Unless it was super, super disturbing, in which case you remember it for like years.
Yeah, like that you write it down, and it informs a piece of fiction that you write, and it becomes the thing that your entire career is based off of, and you're just reliving your nightmare. So Charles Hutton here asked again, can the Super Lasso tool do straight edges like straight line lasso tool?
Of course. You know, I'm so glad you
And he
brought
just
that
comes
up
back
because
and forth.
I forgot that it works with all the selection tools, you guys.
Oh, okay. One
Check this
person suggested
out. Look at this. I'm just gonna use the elliptical marquee tool. Boom. Bam.
That's M.
There it goes. Yep. You want to, Shift M. You'll
M.
select now. Now I'm using the ta-da. So yeah, you can very quickly. And same with the polygonal lasso tool. Go back to my lasso. Shift L. Polygonal lasso tool time.
And can you change lasso tools in the middle of making a
Yes,
shape?
you can. Just hold down. So if you're using a lasso tool, okay,
You start with the polygon.
just hold down the option key. And now look, let go of the option key. Bam, 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 bam. Hold down the option key. Boo. That's a key command a lot of people don't know about. It works both ways.
Fantastic.
So if you are, let's go to the regular, I'm on the regular lasso tool, okay? Drawing, 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 and I'm like, oh, I need a straight line. Okay. Hold down the option key or, Alt on the, now look.
It's all points.
Ta-da. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know that's a thing. There you go. So there's your super tip for the day. And yes, the lasso tool, the super lasso works for any selection tools. So you're not just limited to the regular old lasso.
You got Samantha Jansen here in the chat had been very quiet for a long time since the beginning of this. You pulled Samantha back out to say, "Oh my stars." Thanks for bringing that one up, Charles. I appreciate it.
Yeah, now I feel like I did a bad job. Anybody who dropped off the stream in the first little bit never got to learn that you could use it with all the other selection tools. Oh well.
They didn't deserve it. They did. They needed to earn it.
That's funny.
So yeah, do you want to talk about exactly how you kind of tackle an illustration like this when you've laid in the rough shape and you're working down from a sketch?
Yeah, you can see I'm really just right now thinking in two values. I'm like, light and dark. And I've already got this. So I've got this silhouette I've drawn, which I like, and that was based on the sketch. And of course, I haven't gone in there really and refined it very much, but that's a bit wonky. It's easy for me to go in here, just turn on delete, and just go like that. No big worries.
If there was a person who like they're prone to programming a hotkey or anything like that, would these little toggle options here, the fill and stroke, delete, would those be something that they could set up to like a numpad or anything?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's a good question. I don't know enough about how you can program hotkeys. Cool. I've made a whole bunch of actions for myself, but that's not the same thing. So sorry, I don't have a good answer for that question.
Okay. No, it's fair. Yeah,
Um,
I was just curious if it was something you'd come across in general.
I'd like to know the answer now because I kind of want to do that myself.
I'll write this down next to my opacity for delete note.
Awesome.
We have a question here from someone who says that they bought the Lasso tool. They said, "Hello, I bought the Lasso tool and I was trying it with the mouse. What I wonder is why is it making it angular/angled while drawing a circle?" So I think that if I'm guessing, they're using the elliptical marquee and they're making a circle and they want a perfect circle. That's how I'm choosing to interpret this. Do you want me to read that again? See if you have a different read on it.
I'm wondering, are they saying basically that they're literally drawing with the lasso and hoping they're going to get a better shape than what's coming out? Like they're wanting to be able to have it sort of snap to a circle like it would with Fresco, where you have snap to shape and things like that. And that was what I was.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Vacnuo, go ahead. I said no. Okay. Go ahead. Clarify. Let's see here in the meantime. Patrick from over here at Proko seems to have just seen the magic trick. Says, "I love me a disappearing stylus trick. Many thanks." You're welcome, Patrick. Glad we got one in there. So yeah, Vagno, please specify what you're coming across there. Let's see if we can work on this together. Earlier, there was another comment from Moa Isa saying, as a total beginner, so as a total beginner, Proko and Kyle have been instrumental in guiding hands for me. I'm eternally grateful for you guys. Truly.
Oh,
Thanks.
wow. That's pretty awesome. Thank you. Yeah. What else can I say? That's really nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Vecno came back here, says, I was just trying to draw shapes with a mouse using Windows, by the way. With what tool? Were you just using a lasso or were you using like something like the marquee tool like Kyle had shown recently? I think that might be a thing. Or you're just drawing a circle and expecting a perfect circle.
Great band from the 90s.
A perfect circle?
Early 2000s, sorry.
I am not a fan of a perfect circle, but I'm not going to yuck your yum, Kyle. You love a perfect circle if you want.
It's because I'll tell you why. I saw them live. A friend took me. I had seen Tool twice, and then he's like, "You should watch Perfect Circle," because James, Maynard, whatever his name is, is the guy. And I was like, "All right." And so I went, and they did a good live show.
Yeah, I know that people love them. And I don't hate them. They're just not my brand of a thrashier, heavier music, you know?
It's very produced, and it's meant to be more radio friendly. It's not supposed to be like super raw.
I love a radio, like a poppy metal band works for me so much. Yeah, I don't know what it is. At the end of the day, the thing that I think with this one is that if you and I both went into a Goodwill and we're both looking to the used T-shirt rack, it's gonna only be a good thing for you if I see a perfect circle T-shirt and I just go, nah. We don't have to fight over your shirt because one of us likes it, one doesn't.
There you go.
Yeah. So Vecno, following up again here, wasn't trying to draw a perfect circle, just random shapes. Doesn't have to be a circle. I don't know what you're approaching then. I apologize. I don't know what to do to help with this one.
So it sounds like it's something to do with there's an expectation that isn't being met.
Yeah.
With the tool somehow, but I'm not sure how the super lasso is part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, if we can help you nail this down, I'm up for it. But also, I will say, you can get some direct feedback on questions like this on proko.com/community. It's a free community that you can join, and you can talk about having any art problems in general. Can't figure out where to place the circle on the side of the Loomis head. I don't know what's wrong with my shading. Why is it bad? Or other notes like this. You can reach out on there, ask for some help. I will say, out there in the world, if you think that your shading is bad, it's probably because your shadows are too close to your highlights. You need to have real shadows and real depth. Just as a broad tip for every single person that I see ask for help on their shading, that's probably it.
It is a common problem. Most people don't want to go dark enough. And I blame people when they're kids drawing with HB pencils.
Mm,
And there's just only so much value you can get. There's the range of values with that, unless you're going extremely light on your lights, you're just never going to get to dark.
yeah.
So you don't get any experience drawing with a full range of values. And then when you're older and you're trying to do it, it's like, but that's going to be too dark, and you can't bring yourself to do it.
Yeah. You just can't commit to it.
All right.
Don't be afraid to go dark. And what's the phrase? I always worry I'm gonna mess it up. Your lightest dark should be darker than your darkest light.
Oh my gosh, I know what you're saying. Your lightest darks should be darker than your darkest lights.
Yeah. Once you actually make that phrase stick as an idea, it's a golden piece of wisdom to just refer to whenever you're working on something.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. Kyle, was there anything in particular that you wanted to continue going over here with the stream today? Did you want to take this drawing across?
No, I think at this point you can see what I'm doing. Really, I think you can see that what I'm doing is working here with 2 values. And what I would do beyond this is I would start to think about color, and I might throw a little bit of line here and there. But really, I think the way this is helping me work is speed.
Mm-hmm.
Drawing at the speed of thought, and not having to fight the tool, and not having to think about that extra step. Oh, add some fill here, delete this, delete that. I can just toggle back and forth to what I need. Delete or fill in this stage. But later, what's cool is I could do things like this. I'll just add one more clipping mask layer here. So we'll do this, and I'll pop that up there. All right, so let's say I want to use fill, but I want to use some feathering, right? So now I could do things like, if I decide, okay, maybe this darker area, this area at the top, maybe there's like a shadow from something above him or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So then I could go ahead and make a selection like that, okay? And you see I get that nice soft transition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then set it to like multiply,
Yeah.
and then work that way. So I've got now my layer is on multiply. Maybe I decide, that I'm going to do the same thing down here or whatever. Just start to do these more subtle transitions throughout the piece.
Yeah.
And have that autofill,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, now that you've like blocked in these like the harder shadows go into the overall shadows.
Right. And you can see that before, after, you can start to do some more subtle stuff, and then just keep building. But I think we've covered, how it works and how you could use it. And I know everybody out there will use it their own way, but
absolutely.
Yeah, please check it out.
Okay. I do want to remind everyone that if you do decide to pick up this tool, you can find it over at proko.com/Kyle. I guarantee it's not the last tool that we'll end up having from you. You seem to be making new things and publishing new things at any given day. Your Twitter is a joy to get to witness because of all of this adventure that happens over there.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Stephen. Well, I am working on a new one right now. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
More to come.
Like this is like the eyebrow twitch about it. But yeah, if you guys do decide to grab this right now, you can save 15% off pretty much everything on the website with the code that's here on screen, LEAP15, because it's a leap year. We needed a reason to give you guys a sale, and so that's the one we went for.
So generous. I love it.
Yeah, we try. But yeah, there are a bunch of different things that you do across the internet that people can find out about over on. I think you said that your newsletter is the one you'd prefer people to go to right now, right?
I'm putting a lot of energy into it because I want to have a place where I can write more, because Twitter, you can do little bursts here and there, but I like the idea of building this library of writing and thoughts and putting together these ideas. And I'm hopefully going to someday take some of that and turn it into a book. And speaking of books, I'm also trying to get an art book together. I have 350 drawings that are just over the years. A lot of what happens when I make brushes, Stephen, is I'll start making marks with something new and I'll be like, oh, I want to try and create an image with that. And then I'll create this art, and it's just been sitting there on my computer or in Dropbox for like a decade. And then I thought, well, this is stupid. I should do something with this. So I want to have an artifact. I want to have a book. So hopefully I'll get that Kickstarter going soon. And it's a lot of work, but I want to get it out there. So
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being here. And to everyone in the chat, thank you all for being here. I appreciate you guys' questions. For any of you that picked up the Lasso tool while we were here, I know there were a couple of you that mentioned that. Thank you. I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Kyle, do you have any like last words of wisdom for anybody before we leave? Anyone who made it this far, what do they need?
I think, always remember, if at first you don't succeed, skydiving is not for you.
This is very good.
But in all seriousness, I would say to everybody, be patient with yourselves when you're learning a skill like drawing, because it does take time. But here's what I would recommend. Don't look back on your stuff from a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, or even 3 months ago. Keep working on a daily basis or as frequently as you can, and then look back at stuff from a year ago and you will see real growth, and that will encourage you to keep going. So I think that's the way to do it.
Okay. All right. I agree. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Steve.